Sly 2 was a special game. There seemed to be a buzz around what it did, good enough for many of us to believe that the series would go on indefinitely, and that's not an unreasonable thought. For many games, a successful sequel is just the beginning. The door can open on a wealth of possibilities, perhaps repeating what people enjoyed on a grander scale, or going a different way and attempting a whole new direction. There's a great validity to watching something stay relevant beyond a generation, continuing to delight and surprise people for years to come. So many proved this can happen. But our series is about storytelling, and stories come with a clock attached. Finding renewed purpose in a long-running narrative can be difficult. You might come back for the demand, but have nothing left to say, stumbling in an effort to find a reason. You could grow fatigued, lose your audience, give up, or you could just remake it, I hear that's popular. I'm not criticising the methods too harshly. It's a daunting challenge to top success, and maybe that's the problem. I've always felt the secret to satisfaction on this matter lies in knowing when enough is enough. When you've said everything you wanted to say and realise it's time to let go. That eventually, all stories must end. As must our series. We've seen how Sucker Punch created a great character and used the medium to tell an enjoyable, well-made story. We've seen how they improved on those efforts in a sequel, further bridging the gap between story and gameplay to elicit empathy. Now, in the final part of this retrospective, we look at how the developer's third installment brings everything into focus. Because Sly 3 is not only a great story, it's a story that validates the power of endings. I don't think there's anything else to say. It's time to travel on. This is Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves.
You can run with us. We've got everything you need. Run with us.
There's little information on the third game's development, but we can piece together just enough to know things for Sucker Punch after Sly 2 were good. Very good. It was an uncomplicated success. Sales hit well above Sly 1's numbers thanks to the extensive marketing campaign, and reviews were kind, acknowledging its improvements on the original. In the wake of Ratchet and Jack, folks were recognising Sly as another mascot for Sony, who would in response naturally greenlight a new game. But the turnaround on the next project would be, as a result, extremely fast. In fact, it was the fastest turnaround Sucker Punch would have on a game yet, going from their usual development period of 2 years to 1. It's less bad than it sounds. Unlike the transition from Sly 1 to Sly 2, they had already made the improvements they wanted to make to Sly as an experience, providing an excellent basis to build a third game on straight away. The immediate concern centered on plans to improve their presentation and expand on their technical skill set. Having always had a bit of a been there, done that attitude, they wanted to continue pushing their abilities and experiment with techniques that could add to their growing portfolio for future projects. Lots of crazy gameplay modes or possible characters were discussed, while trying out many new mechanics, a lot of which hit the cutting room floor, probably for the best, that showed a willingness to explore options outside the boundaries of what was established. There were a great deal of ideas being flung at the wall, which may have set off a few warning bells, but it was all to a purpose. Brian Fleming likened the project to an amusement park, with many different attractions brought together by a strong, distinctive vision. In this case, their story. Evidence of this vision was found in a second comic released before the game's debut, again created by members of the development team. The plot threads are, this time around, significant to the canon of the games, kicked off by Sly sneaking into prison to chat with a guy from his father's old gang, Jim Mcsweeny, who's adamant to have proof that this is the Sly Cooper he's talking to.
That building looks... It reminds me of something. I can't remember.
Sorry, kid. Looking pathetic don't earn no points with me. Here's hoping you find breaking out of here easier than breaking in. Not that a real Cooper would ever have to worry about that.
Oh yeah? You want a real Cooper? I'll give you a real Cooper. Italy. When I was 3, my father took me to a city in Italy, on the Ligurian coast. There was a museum there that looked as out of place as a walrus in a jail cell.
Sly? It really is you!
The revelation Mcsweeny drops has Sly attempt to reunite his friends, so we're able to see how they're coping after the Claw Gang incident.
Murray's been down on himself since the end of our last caper. Now he blames himself for every little thing that goes wrong, even when it's not his fault.
Sorry, Sly. Small window, big feet.
I've already had my sponge bath for the day. Please inform the nurses I won't be requiring another until tomorrow afternoon.
Well, that's a relief.
Sly! Murray! How did you—
Up against the wall, Cooper!
Okay, Murray. On the count of 3, I want you to grab—
No. When I make my move. Get Bentley out of here.
Sly! We can't just leave him here! It's unconscionable!
Murray, you big lug, weren't you listening? It's all for one and one for all. Or the team doesn't work.
The final section flips over to Carmelita musing on the Cooper Gang's activities, deciding that, this time, she'll put out all the stops to see them behind bars.
Enough is enough, people! He's out there somewhere, laughing at us behind our backs. You've all been briefed on his profile and known working methods. It's time Sly Cooper found out that we're going to have the last laugh!
Yeah.
We're seeing the voice of the series at its strongest. The art style is more consistent than last issue, polished to look exactly like the previous game's cutscenes and codifying the look of the brand. The dialogue gives insights to the characters' experiences while moving the story forward. Most interesting of all, these moments are promised to be resolved in the game. Mcsweeny offering details about the gang Sly's dad ran with and their heritage, Bentley forgiving them for his condition, Murray quitting the team. This is all heavy stuff to leave us hanging on, my dude. What on earth could happen in the game that followed? Well... So, a lot of questions, and that's okay. Previous entries began in recognisable locations that put Sly in his element. We're well out of his usual stomping grounds here, getting you curious about what's going on and indicating, if you're a returning fan, that things will be a little different.
This is it, Sly. The gang's assembled and are in position to help you get up to that vault. For the rest of the operation, you are the ball.
Roger, Bentley. I'm starting my approach. Getting over these fortress walls shouldn't be a problem. Look, we're running 5x5 here. Make sure everyone's in sync.
I hear that. Artillery, sure you can make that shot?
I endeavor not to miss.
Excellent. Radio control.
In position.
Recovery team. On pump. Submersibles. Showtime, baby. Telekinetics. Alright, it's the crime of the century and the ball's in motion.
It doesn't matter if you've guessed the identities of these hidden faces. The focus is on Sly alone, walking through this tutorial as he's assisted from the shadows by the mysterious newcomers, each showcasing talents we'll get more acquainted with later on. Clearly we're missing something here, but we don't have time to ask what just yet.
How's your wife doing, Richards?
Oh, very well, Dr. M. Thank you for asking. Very thoughtful.
This conversation plays out in real time. On top of collecting intel, it's a chance to discover, through Sly's sneaky POV, that this guy's our villain, and he's not very nice.
It's a shame you won't be seeing them again.
Sir?
Afraid I poisoned your drink at lunch. Sorry, Richards, but I don't tolerate poor performance. You should have changed the security code from 1, 2, 3 after you installed the new system.
I'll improve, I swear.
No, you'll die. Any second now. Yes, water leaking into the lab. I'm on my way down. Oh, and get a janitor for the lab elevator. Richards got sloppy.
It's all scripted, but letting us see this while in control keeps us in the flow of the heist, like when we appear to trip an alarm, breaking the silence and encouraging us to sprint along the path leading to our goal, where it assumes we'll use the information we heard to our advantage. Already we've got several examples of other characters' actions affecting our input, pulling us into the story by setting up questions we'll have to keep playing to have answered. For instance,
Cooper! You must be Sly Cooper, the new keeper of the cane. Oh, how I long for this.
This vault belongs to the Cooper family. You're trespassing.
No, my naive boy, you're trespassing. I've got the deed to this island. This fortress is mine. Everything here is mine, which now includes the key to the vault. Hand over that cane.
Sorry, pal. Family heirloom. Buy a knockoff at the gift shop.
Quick, let's regroup with the others. Follow me.
we can't even process what might be happening as we're forced backwards through the route we took with Bentley, watching all our work be undone bit by bit in another frantic dash. Still, we manage to escape, no doubt to the waiting van, and make a quick getaway. Well, that's new. The intensity is at its absolute peak. You're thrown into this fight without warning, following your instincts while wondering how the flying floops foogly things got this bad. It doesn't let up. If anything, it just gets worse.
Eat this!
Sly! No! Hold on, Sly! Hold on!
It was like they always say. Your life really does flash before your eyes. There it all was, stretching back to my childhood.
Our narrative now takes a fresh stance, framed as a flashback told from Sly's point of view. Everything is recounted leading up to this moment, placing emphasis on Cooper history, then working us through his childhood and previous adventures, to catch new and old players up with the general context of the series so far. The crux of the issue comes when discussing the events of the comic, where Mcsweeny reveals details about Sly's father and his family inheritance.
It seemed that my father, like all my ancestors, had been hiding their wealth in a secret place for generations, each one adding to the treasure hidden behind a door that, if Mcsweeny's story is true, only a Cooper can open.
Thing is, there's an emotional distance to it all as we bear witness to what's become of that legacy.
We discovered someone by the name of Dr. M had already set up shop. From the looks of it, he'd been trying to crack the thing for years, growing steadily more frustrated in his failures and more paranoid as the decades rolled by.
The tone, while mysterious, doesn't have the arrogance of the first game or the desperation of the second. It feels pragmatic. It's a big job, but it's got to be done. And it's got to be done differently.
Getting inside the place would take precision, creativity, and moreover, it would take an army of world-class thieves. Finding and bringing together that much talent won't be easy, but to get inside the Cooper vault and collect my inheritance, I was willing to pay the price.
This is where things truly begin. Oh wait, can I skip this? Oh damn! I forgot that this was in here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mhm. Are we ready? Okay. This is where we truly begin? Okay, yeah, good. Cough. Landing in Venice, Italy, you might find yourself feeling more at ease. We're back in familiar territory for Sly, a major capital city with a rich history of culture, home to a criminal mastermind whose minions patrol the streets. Still, a few things are missing. A team member, the van, Bentley's leg. What starts here may seem familiar, re-establishing everything expected of the series so far. But, as we continue, we're eased into a variety of changes that allow Sly 3 to claim its own identity. It's all part and parcel of our ultimate goal, to rebuild and reform the Cooper Gang. Returning fans will find playing as Sly himself almost identical to Sly 2. Same control scheme with sneaky abilities mapped to the circle button, same improvements like being able to run, the health bar, and the same various upgrades on offer. Environments still work on a jungle gym philosophy, so you can interact with objects and improvise your way across the space with athletic moves. He can still pickpocket guards, and still has a safe house to return to when switching teammates, or buying power-ups. Missions are sought out via waypoints through the Binocucom, with your friends bantering over the transmissions. What wasn't broken hasn't been fixed. The good stuff is back in force, still giving the impression that Sly is an accomplished thief in a world of funny cartoon dogmen. You'd be forgiven for thinking this could be a carbon copy of the previous game, repeating the same old tricks rather than feeling like a full sequel, but right from the start, Sly 3 throws us a couple of curveballs.
Murray? Is that you?
Murray, that name's a stain on my pants, bro. What? Cooper, you've got some fuzzy dice to come round here.
Sly 2's key innovation was character interaction. Sucker Punch wanted to showcase personalities through gameplay, experiencing the talents of 3 unique playable characters, funneled through tightly controlled plans to pull off massive heists, with occasionally master criminals and the police intruding on our progress. There was an attempt to make the world feel more alive and reactive, and this is still present, but Sly 3 has a different goal which gives things an entirely new speed. Last time we were collecting the clockwork parts, an objective we anticipated across the game, making exceptions to that rule quite dramatic. We held others at arm's length, our band of thieves trying to stick to their mission without getting too involved. The same is not possible here. Our goal is not to collect objects, but to build a team, and that means putting our people skills to use.
God! Carmelita!
Wait!
The first mission sets a precedent for this expanded interplay, started by a simple dialogue tree gimmick that has us negotiating with Dimitri for info, then creating a plan to deal with the police, led by, well, who else?
Now, where was I?
Relationships between characters are established in the staging rather than in a cutscene. Sly hides right under the nose of the law as Carmelita leads a conference for these intense-looking mercenaries. It exemplifies her leadership skills and authority while on the job. Plus, if you stick around to listen, you can even learn what she's discovered about the area too.
I've hired you mercenaries over traditional cops because this is a dangerous assignment. The neighborhood is filled with the Octavio goons. It's a war out there. Get tough, or you won't last 5 minutes.
It's a strong introduction for all concerned, establishing personalities, the tension of working on the wrong side of the law, and of course, Sly's impeccable charm.
Hello, assorted meatheads. And lady. Anyone feel like some exercise?
Cooper, grab him, man!
And I'm out.
Not sure if you've noticed, but the dialogue has a lot of bite. Our reintroduction to the cops and robbers dynamic between Sly and Carmelita, compared to previous efforts, makes that patently clear.
You've got some serious nerve showing up in my squad room.
I was concerned we were growing apart.
Then let's spend some quality time together in my interrogation cell.
So forward. What happened to the demure girl I used to know?
She grew up and stopped taking grief from guys like you.
Guys like me? Are you saying I've got some competition for your affections?
You're the only man in my sights right now.
There's a slicker, more direct sound that comes with this shift in focus. Speeches instructing the player on how to use controls or unnecessarily expositing information are largely forgone in favour of letting actions speak for themselves, and this is the change worked throughout missions from now on.
Greetings, old Inspector Fox! Man, you're in it again!
Character interaction is still key, but it's refined to elicit more honest responses that we can adapt to in the moment. This prevents the tricks of Sly 2 from being repeated wholesale, which, on top of taking us down less predictable paths, changes how we get to play.
Tell me everything. I've missed you, pal.
Well, it's a long and awesome story. You got any gum?
As the goal changes how the game is expressed overall, it would be impossible to shake the effect of Sly 2's consequences on the Cooper gang specifically. Sucker Punch stuck with the choices they made by reflecting them in the trio's current skill sets, running the gamut of extremes from minimal upgrades to a complete change of style. While Sly's base controls haven't changed, he's learned a bunch of tricks during the gang's hiatus which help to enforce his image as a professional, doubling down as a way to cope with past mistakes. Most notable is his new title as a Master of Disguise. Well, to a point anyway.
I'm a new, just got called in from Roma.
I can't believe that worked! You've got the worst Italian accent I've ever heard! No offense.
Sly is now able to blend in with the level's guards thanks to a couple of costumes he can acquire over the course of the adventure, enemies confronting him with a password should he get inadvertently spotted. It's a simple but immersive addition. Infiltrating our opponent's ranks is the next logical sneaky step, and better fleshes out the flavour of the outfit you're up against, be it kinda vanilla or real spicy.
Am I glad you're here? Mama's making spaghetti tonight and I'm starving. I'm gonna eat like 4 plates of food.
I guess that you really like a cookie.
Mamma mia, I want to be buried in her sauce. It's heaven.
Any problems with that guy?
Said he wanted to be buried in his mom's pasta sauce.
Yeah. That's strange.
You know, I just can't get it out of my head. Have you ever had pasta sauce that tasty? I don't want to distract you or anything, but I just don't think I've ever had cooking that good. Are we like missing out on a whole universe of flavors here?
Sly, don't touch the spaghetti, it's a bad idea. Murray's changes are more balanced. I've mentioned before that he never does anything by halves, always moving in extremes when making decisions. At the start, he was treated as a burden, and becoming the Murray was a drastic shift to prove his independence. That self-image shattered completely after Bentley's accident, so he decided to turn heel again, going on a spiritual quest to achieve inner peace. Murray begins in a state of turmoil, and while his abilities are mostly the same, he contrasts this with a bizarre defensive technique learnt while spiritually training known as the Bull form, a sign of his immense adaptability. Being the first major recruit of the game helps stress that what happened last time mattered, and that's kept up through the portrayal in cinematics. He's still played by Chris Murphy, but there's an unclean, manic tone to his voice that sells the conflict. It's nicely balanced, so you get a Murray who's fun to be around, but whose wounds won't be easy to heal, even if his friends disagree.
I'm done with all that. I found a new path. It's full of peacefulness.
Come on, what happened to the Murray? The guy who'd get into a fist fight with 10 thugs wearing nothing but a towel. The guy who used to punch first and not bother asking questions later. Where's that guy? Where's my old friend?
I'm sorry, Bentley. I tried to save you, but I just wasn't strong enough.
Get over it, Murray. I don't blame you and never have. The only thing I feel bad about is losing my pal.
Of the three, it's Bentley who's changed the most. Plans for his becoming wheelchair-bound were already decided during Sly 2's development, and before the third got going, they did focus tests to see how kids felt, the resounding answer being, sounds neat. It is indeed neat, because playing as new Bentley's the best. The accident that cost him his legs, instead of having him hide in his shell, has actually made him highly appreciative of his life, having faced hell and lived. He was once afraid to step foot out of the safe house, now he throws himself into missions with reckless abandon, complete with a wheelchair that, honestly, makes him 1,000,000 times more agile, faster than he ever was on foot and packed with gadgets. These include a magnifying glass that allows him to hunt for hidden codes in portraits, and a grapple cam that plays like a whole extra character, with a mounted microphone to distract guards. This is coupled with an improved fondness for explosives, guns, squeezing the trigger. He doesn't need to blow his nose anymore. He'll blow yours.
That explosive had some kick.
It was a child compared to this ferocious beast. Don't dilly-dally with this one. It's got a longer fuse, but you've got farther to run.
Ferocious beast?
Run, Sly, run! Fear the beast!
The unit is fractured at this point, so it's not quite clear how these changes affect the team as a whole, but we catch glimpses of the dynamic shifting. Murray setting down more personal terms shows a degree of agency outside of the unit, and Bentley's newfound deviousness sees him take control, the contents of his plans being quite manipulative. There is, as always in the Sly universe, a cause and effect to such changes. As before, the villains are able to pay this back in kind, and are more, shall we say, hands-on this time around.
Believe me, old-timer, I don't make idle threats.
You ain't nothing without these little guys' brains. So, I figure I'll just scoop them out real slow and use them to fertilize my tomato plants.
I'm allergic to tomatoes!
Let's talk about Don Octavio, a faded opera singer turned mafioso. The Mafia is a criminal trope left untouched by the Sly series until now, so it's excellent to see them attempt to do a turf war tale. Originally, the plan was to have the level focus on the upcoming carnival, the mob in disguise as street performers, and Octavio himself depicted in early concept art as foppishly pampered. As the game got closer to release, a more traditional Godfather approach was taken, the final touch of a phantom-esque mask providing a theatrical edge. His mobsters, likewise, are less intense variations on the same theme, fancy suits and carnival masks to visually connect their loyalties, presenting an organised front. It's an extension of character information being littered through the design, and sparking a trend of villain not part of any greater plot, but someone with their own agenda.
When the people come to see me sing, I want to make sure they keep a-coming. Even if they don't feel like it. One way or the other, there be opera fans again. Hey, hey, hey! Okay, see you soon.
We aren't just told Don Octavio is a bad fella, we see him getting up to mischief and muscling in on other people's turfs. It's shown to us that missions have phased out expected actions from Sly 2, like the mandatory recon sections, installing a more organic method where the characters gather intel on the move and in context, letting them catch the villain in the act and priming us for the necessity of a confrontation.
That's despicable.
All those poor dead fish!
Putting the gang on the scene allows us to see for ourselves why they should be concerned, and in doing so, the player is able to feel justified in their efforts to bring them down as they gather themselves together for the final operation. It justifies anything that plays to the characters involved. Anything. Really. Bentley sings opera.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Getting here, believe it or not, was necessary. The question Sly 2 left us with was, can things be the same as they once were? And the answer was very upfront. No. The characters had been through too much to simply turn the clock back and pretend nothing happened. And the question that needs to be answered is, what does a Sly game without that type dynamic look like? Venice is reminiscent of the levels past at a first glance, but what it introduces is the possibility of indelible change, in personality, in gameplay, and in tone, as well as sow the seeds for potential in the future. Whether or not that's comfortable for them or even the player, well, that's worth looking at later. For now, we can sit back and enjoy the show.
La 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 la.
La 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 la. Now!
What? No!
Freeze! The lot of you are going to jail!
This recital is over.
Our explosive end is, on the surface, here to readdress the balance. An entire chapter has been spent ramping up what a monster this guy is, how Murray's guilt stems from the incident 2 years ago, and now both issues collide with screaming fury to recreate the scene he's been running from.
Help!
Something has to give.
That does it! I'll floss my teeth with your spine!
In reality, there is an irony to Murray bringing things to a close, fists first. It's true that we're reuniting the Cooper gang and allowing Murray to right the wrongs of the past by finally getting a chance to save his pal. That's to show us that their friendship still counts, but it's far from back to normal. The change we have discussed is only going to grow, and it's Octavio who puts it best.
So that's it. The old guard's out, and a new generation steps in.
It's the end of an era for us all. Completing Venice brings us properly into the game's hook of expanding our roster. That comes with the inevitability of expanding other horizons too, and this presents a world rich in variety. One trip takes us to Yuendumu, Australia, home to Murray's Aboriginal spirit guide who was kidnapped by some local miners drilling around Ayers Rock, natively known by its real name, Uluru. In real life, the rock sits outside of Yuendumu by 500 miles, but here takes on the abbreviated language of Sly's universe, where landmarks and locations are squashed into compact spaces. The land is a focal point for off-site activities carried out by the miners, divided into chaotic elements of machinery and ruin to get across the state it's been left in. This extends to the caves we can access below, haphazardly lined with machinery that hones the space onto linear platforming. It's a scrappy affair, closer to the dirty jobs of Sly 1, and a chance for the trio to see if they can get back into the swing of their work ethic.
Yeah!
We're going after some radioactive oil, right?
I don't know. I can never pay attention during those slideshows. Don't tell Bentley.
Wouldn't dream of it.
The party is quite different up in Kinderjig.
Holland.
Real-life windmill spot and home to a dogfighting competition we've been challenged to beat in order to earn the respect of a mechanic called Penelope. Hosted by her mysterious boss, the Black Baron, this is a sophisticated caper, attended by competing pilots from across the world, including, oh my god,
we're gonna drill you jokers full of holes!
It's quite a bit different from anything Sly's done before, in that it's broken into distinct sections of interactivity. The central district is densely populated with indoor environments, including a huge hotel where we see many of the competing pilots relaxing between events, and, unlike Australia, we're encouraged to remain in disguise and keep a low profile. The southwestern area is home to the team's hangars, so guard presence is at its peak. We can see the Baron's castle at the northern point, high above the rest of the land so he can keep an eye on the contestants' activities. The only action in the woods below is a huge wolf that serves as a deterrent to anyone who might enter his domain. It's probably the densest of all the Sly maps, with an ecosystem of ideas that make it feel distinctly well lived in. These areas subtly change depending on your place in the story too. Dev Madan explained that they wanted each phase of the plan set at different times of day to inform the progression of the heist, also presenting different palettes to break up the visual monotony of a locale. And they take effect thanks to the well-painted backdrops that comprise the level's skyboxes. Background textures have a painterly feel, separating them against the brighter block colours worn by the characters and their harsh cel-shaded outlines, bringing the series even closer to the look of a hand-drawn animated feature. It's a cleaner, saturated polish that puts the game in a more energetic light than the last outing, and that's well suited to the pace of their work. With every title, Sucker Punch wanted more equality between the team, and the way they've individualized has encouraged a complete change in dynamic. Previously, they complemented each other as three codependent parts of a single unit, having unique skills but lacking one or two advantages another character would offer. Sly was the most versatile of the pack, thereby cementing his constant position as leader. Now, however, all three characters have nearly the same level of versatility. Some of this is because they've been given abilities that allow them to match Sly's skills in their own special way, and other advantages come from environments being built to offer equal chances, like these buttons attached to destructible traps that you can activate to kill guards from afar. This means the shape of their unit is not always pointed towards Sly, and that inherently changes how and where we see them appear in the story, taking on tasks that lets them lead the charge over the other two, or doing something that might have once been considered completely out of their depth.
Why did the chicken cross the road to France? Because it wasn't turkey! And you see, the chicken's not a turkey or a Turk. It's a chicken! A French hen!
Some of this involves entirely new gimmicks with complex behaviours. A host of vehicles all correspond to the different kinds of terrains we're covering, from massive rigs and trucks to teeny tiny boats.
Nautical!
Bentley's hacking returns, with all sorts of new obstacles thrown into the mix. The dogfighting championships in Holland force us behind the cockpit of a plane through all the various legs of the competition. The important additive is how teamwork is also embellished in these modes where possible. Often these vehicles and bits of equipment require more than one pair of hands to operate. Your friends are present in most of these instances, creating the illusion, in some cases, of playing as two characters at once, leading to, in certain situations, interestingly advanced challenges. Nate Fox, in discussing the evolution from 1 to 3, talks about how that's achieved through mechanical expression rather than graphical power.
It's interesting to look at the computer monitor section of that gameplay, just how much more abstract everything's gotten from those original kind of very linear level design.
I think it says a lot about how they wanted those mechanics to represent their story beats, including the gang's camaraderie.
Alright boys, look tough and get angry. It's time to intimidate the locals.
I'm not sure I can do it! How do you guys get angry?
Find the match deep inside yourself. Light it, and let the fire burn up your guts and boil your blood!
Yeah, I pretty much do the same thing.
Nowhere is that more obvious than when we step out for a night on the lash in Oz against a bunch of bad Bruces.
Listen up, dirtbags. Time to clear out. From now on, this bar is Cooper Gang turf.
Tough talk, wagger. But you ain't got no respect with us. We here are known around these parts for our drinking skills. And this just happens to be a lemonade bar.
Classic stuff, man. It's what true friendship is made of. Down the bar, with me mates, cracking a Foster's, chugging a fat one-batter brew in the bush. Chugga, 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 chugga. Wait, he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it! Oh, he's gonna do it!
We win!
That's cheating! Why, the turtle spilled more than he drank.
Around here, there's only one thing we do with cheaters. Turn on the fence, Bruce! It's time we gave these cheaters a beating.
Boxing the team into this barroom fight is where we get to physicalise that new dynamic between the reunited team in the players' hands, switching between the three of them at set intervals as they protect each other at the peak of their friendship. The mission is their first equally shared experience, all participating to take on the same challenge, and nothing's gonna stop them, nothing. Yeah, you heard me, mate. You got anything to say about it, Cobber? Oh, sorry, mate. Didn't realise it was like that. The villains stop fitting into the moulds we've become accustomed to. Octavio was the last to get the classic treatment, with a backstory and criminal past. The rest aren't as easy to pin down.
I bid you all a most flamboyant welcome, my esteemed comrades of the skies.
The Black Baron of Holland is hardly a monster. He's a respected chap with a strong sense of fair play, and we discover that it's our fellow pilots who we should be worried about.
We all know that in years past, some teams have engaged in a little good-natured late-night hijinks. Like when Team Canada stole Ecuador's parachutes!
Or when Team Iceland sawed the landing gear off Korea's planes!
Or when Portugal put rat poison in Team Mugshot's coffee machine! Yes, that was all so very funny, but no more! You know the rules. No one, absolutely no one, is to leave the hotel after sunset. If my guards catch you outside, you will be beaten to within an inch of your life. No exceptions! I bid you all an exuberant and exaggerated farewell, pilots. Tonight, sleep like geese. And tomorrow, soar like eagles, eh?
For once, the guy we're up against has better morals than us. I mean, we're going around sabotaging our competitors. That's the brilliant plan we came up with to win. He didn't force our hand on this one. I'm sure that's not going to backfire in any possible way.
Greetings, troglodytes! Didn't think I forgot about Mace's City, did you? I figure you jerks let me smash up your aeroplane and we're even.
You and what army, dumb guy?
Army? Oh yeah? Okay, boys. I paid you up good enough. Time to crack some skulls.
Our old pal Mugshot carries the bulk of the antagonism for the rest of the chapter, but the significant difference to this encounter is that Sly never confronts him directly. The concept of equal opportunities is carried through this feud, as it's only the other teammates who get to fight him head on, Benchley taking the lead on the final assault by attacking the guy in a good old-fashioned call-out.
I've been thinking about your appearance.
Look, if you don't got nothing to say nice, then don't say nothing at all. Get it? What? Ain't got no sassy comments, smart guy? Oh, I get it. You got nothing nice to say, so you're keeping quiet. That's real cute. You really got nothing nice to say? That's cold.
It was a surprise when Benchley squared up to Jean Besson. Now it's a sure-footed common practice of his, and it's way too funny to me.
Your mother was a broken-down tub of junk with more gentleman callers than the operator.
We don't even have a singular target to contend with back in Australia, holding off a pack of greedy miners scrambling over the rock looking for loot. As things develop, our focus switches to what they dug up, a spooky artifact known as the Mask of Dark Earth, which begins attaching itself to many of the guards and turning them into mini-bosses. It's a left-field moment for sure, dealing with an angry spirit that has no clear motivation other than wanting us dead. Thoughts on development were evidently drifting from repeating only the high-class capers introduced in 2, the team discussing a lot of potential sci-fi concepts as a nod to some crazy movies they'd been inspired by.
One of the levels that they mentioned that they were considering doing in development that they never did was kind of a riff on that old movie about dinosaurs in Mexico, which I know very little about. It was a Ray Harryhausen film, but they wanted to do a level where you were in Mexico and there were dinosaurs that were living there.
That might explain the turn this chapter takes once Carmelita suddenly bursts onto the scene. I'm just going to let this run.
Carmelita, you've got a little something on your face.
It's not nice to make fun of a girl's looks.
Maybe I should smash you!
Now, that's not nice.
The chemicals in my darts must somehow be interacting with the mask to make her even bigger.
This face is everything. Yeah, so, the 50-foot Carmelita, complete with giant monster music. I'm not going to pretend this isn't weird. God, there are layers of uncomfortability to tangle with, okay? From the concept to getting real close. and some of you like that. Yet the characters don't betray themselves and discuss the situation as you'd hope they might after they realise they have to do something.
Time to stop running and deal with the real problem. Pry off that mask of Dark Earth and maybe we'll get back the Carmelita we all know and love.
I do not love her!
Okay, not the point. It's all about taking off that mask. We gotta find a way up there.
You're the climber, and I'm sure you've always wanted to get closer to her. Can't get much closer than climbing up her bootlaces.
That's not a crazy idea.
Oh yeah, it's crazy!
You got a better idea?
Yeah, but we'd need a giant fighting robot!
Sly 3 just about scrapes through this tongue-in-cheek nightmare thanks to some excellent writing. Yeah, it's far out of the reach of what we've seen before, but the story has a place for this, strange as that may seem. It knows where it wants to go, and it's a mere fraction of the fun and interesting ways characters get included, especially Inspector Fox. This sound is in my brain. We've seen Carmelita go through a lot of creative changes over the trilogy. There was never anything wrong with her on paper, and plenty of noble attempts were made to ensure she felt like a credible threat, either in her Crash Bandicoot-inspired chase sections, or appearing on the map to mess with our heroes, a gimmick Sly 3 uses in multiple locations. The issue was really down to presentation. Her hot temper seemed to tilt into stupidity, and the bulk of the second game has her turn into an underdog in order to service their intricate plot, meaning we've seen less of her under normal circumstances. And then there was the issue of finding her voice.
Why recast in that? Was it just an availability thing, or we don't know, or what?
I don't think, from what I've gleaned from them, is that fans have never been really all that satisfied with Carmelita's
voice from Carmelita.
Her accent comes and goes, or people find it unintelligible. So they just haven't landed on somebody that they've enjoyed.
In the first game, right, there was a woman who was recast. She would read these lines with an accent that made no sense to me, but I loved it. Where she would say, "My pistol packs a paralyzing punch."
I feel third time was absolutely the charm. Ruth Livier, a Latin American herself, gives a sterling performance as Carmelita, introducing nuances that bring out the best of her personality. She comes across not only as hot-tempered, but self-assured and dismissive, which, coupled with her authority to act on those flaws, makes her an excellent foil to Sly and the gang. Every line delivered like she's giving a big stubborn yawn.
Another uneventful patrol. This city's beautiful, but a bit quiet for my taste.
She's given ample time to show off many sides of her personality, allowing us to see more of her than ever before. Maybe too much. To sweeten the deal, she's also, to answer a long-asked fan request, finally a playable character, one of the strongest in the game, only called upon when she's manipulated into helping the gang's own schemes.
That little punk is gonna eat dirt. Hey! You're that cop hag that busted me back in Mesa City!
Mugshot, alias Two Gun Tony, also known as Meathead Mugshot. 7 foot 3 inches, 324 pounds, wanted in 7 countries with 13 outstanding warrants for your arrest. And yes, I'm that cob hag that put you away back in Mesa.
She's a wild card, both in gameplay and in the story, and that helps keep things moving without ever leaving her importance behind.
Sorry, I didn't know they was yours.
Ugh, booking this idiot'll take all night. Oh well, I'm sure Cooper won't make his move anytime soon.
She isn't alone on that front. Our mission was to recruit people who could help us pull off the Cooper Vault job, added into the mix as characters we can play as. This has a huge effect on the dynamic of the team and the direction the story takes, even if we don't play as them as often as the main gang. While some are familiar faces who we understand and can integrate with little trouble, the new guys all bring a different approach that adds untapped dimensions to the core trio. Sex. The Guru, Murray's teacher, doesn't have controls that necessarily complement the gang. They complement the space you play in. He can transform into bits of scenery that allow him to fool guards and escape undetected, and then sneak up behind them and take possession of their mind, offering rambunctious results. Fitting for a man of few words, coherent ones anyway. Mad respect for Aboriginals, yo, oh no. Penelope, by contrast, is a technician, and her skills are only experienced through her remote-controlled devices. Her chopper takes its basis from Bentley's gadget in Sly 2, clearly a modified version of that model and control, but she also comes with a remote-controlled car of her own design. Her lack of presence on the field serves a useful story purpose. She's required to be out of sight in the chapter as she watches our progress from afar, so it lets her be involved in our activities and introduce herself during this leg of the story regardless. I guess it's not really clear why she doesn't show herself at all. Even when we're finally squaring off with her boss, she doesn't get involved.
That's enough. You win, Cooper.
Wait, you? You're Penelope, the Baron's mechanic. No, you are the Black Baron.
Oh. Okay. Silver linings are everywhere. The result of all these additions, from types of spaces to vehicles to characters, is that things feel busier and by proxy less introverted and lonely. Sly 2 presented a lot of failures in our quest to preserve the status quo, and now as we fight to earn the trust of new people, we see frequent victories, with much of the ever-changing dynamics played for laughs. As the number rises from 3 gang members to 5, you begin to feel the weight of carrying around all these extra personalities, and that is entirely by design.
The thing that's neat about Sly 3 is basically all 3 of the characters are off on their own. They've all got their own questions that they have of themselves, as well as their relationships with the team. You know, when you get a big group of people together, maybe not everybody's going to get along, there may be a little bit of tension, so it's going to be just a ton of back and forth of differences of opinions, because they're all the best at what they do, so you're going to get a little bit of button heads.
One piece of territory not before covered is conflict between our heroes. We've had hints of frayed tensions that have arisen from the changed dynamic, always threatening to get more serious but never crossing the line, and that is suddenly confronted when we realise we need a demolition expert as our next recruit.
Bentley's proposed candidate was a shock. My old enemy, the Panda King.
This is a big deal. Panda King was one of the 5 villains responsible for the murder of Sly's parents, and while Mugshot also took part, he's presented here as irredeemably pathetic. There were no such laughs around Panda King, an arsonist who buried villages that refused to meet his demands. His actions were unspeakable, and the idea of him joining our gang is not something we skip over lightly.
There was no way I was gonna let that monster on my team, but Bentley was firm. He discovered the Panda King had left his life of crime, and was now a monk, living the life of quiet meditation high up in the mountains.
It's the first time we see Sly socially out of his comfort zone. He's forced into the decision, and on arriving, we already see his voice backgrounded, the thoughts and needs of the larger team drowning out his own.
I miss the van. We never had to walk anywhere back then.
Okay. Let's just get this over with.
Seriously, you guys want to see my blisters?
No way. Is he serious?
Nobody's looking for him to lead. Well, not on the field, anyway.
Great! Anything for Sly. I love to see him pull off those athletic moves.
Bruh. His restraint is felt in the sequence to follow, as we're handed control of the gang, each person helping create a path for Sly to eventually take, a playable demonstration, if you will, of how much has already changed. Less and less authority has been taken by Sly on the field, and if that has you thinking about how different things used to be, then brother, you're way ahead of the game.
He's in a super meditative state.
So let's just shout in his ear.
Now, to break him out of this trance, we'll need to delve into his mind.
A hacksaw then?
No! It'll require channeling. Sly, sit beside the Panda King. The guru will bridge your minds.
So much for that guy. I feel like this is where Sly was at.
I see you carry the cane of the notorious Cooper Thief clan. Have you come here for revenge? To steal back the thievius raccoonus?
Whoa, this is just like the time I beat the stuffing out of you.
Why should you care if I bury a few worthless villagers in the snow? You are a thief, just like me.
Yeah, are you even listening to what I'm saying?
Insolent child, you shall pay dearly for your disrespect. Still, to honor your Cooper ancestry, I will send you to your doom with the beauty of my new firework technique. Flame Fu.
Uh-oh.
Talk about the extra mile. This use of the medium, of recreating an old boss fight almost exactly as it appeared in Sly 1, helps us get into the headspace of someone desperately clinging to the past, remembering moments as the player probably remembers them too.
Booming chop! Fiery wheel!
It's contrasted with the word balloon gimmick, comparing the aggressive methods of the younger Sly to his modern, considered approach, so that he can make a particular point, one that will resonate as we continue.
We both know why you're here. You're fixated on the moment of your greatest defeat. I beat you. And forever after, you've wondered how it all fell apart.
I hate you, Sly Cooper. You've ruined me. Ruined the Panda King.
And I've hated you. But that doesn't make any of this real. Years have passed, and we've both changed. Come out of this trance. Let's meet each other as we are today, and let go of who we were when this fight occurred.
You are correct. Forgive me. My mind is not always my own.
Our breakthrough reveals the pain is felt on both sides, as King explains he has been separated from his daughter, kidnapped by a young warlord and soon to be forced into marriage. A common goal to rescue her is founded in order to secure his services, but this will be no friendship. At Beyond the Halfway Point, this is a taste of the coming chapter's attempt to present the game's thematic conflict, the consequences of valuing reputation above all, and, most importantly, how characters feel trapped by their pasts. When it comes to Panda King, the question, I suppose, is why? Why choose him over the rogues we've faced before? It's not even to say returning to his homeland in China makes for a remarkably different choice to what's come previously. Our heist centres around a wedding, and the work towards that is reasonably standard as Sly levels go. Cracking out our disguises and Bentley, no! 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 It's not a terribly special stage in terms of construction either, a rather simplistic map compared to the others. Tonally though, it's so correct. Midpoints of the previous games were intense in a different way, set in spooky castles and haunted swamps, while this quiet, snowy clearing in the Kunlun Mountains has a downbeat, brooding effect, matching King's personality as well as the reflective turn the story has taken, which is part of why he's the perfect choice. Hey, what's that over there?
I don't believe it!
What? You found the signal?
It's the team van! Last time I saw it, it was floating away on a block of ice in Canada! And now it's here!
Highly probable given ocean currents.
I gotta go get it! Don't worry, baby! Mama's coming!
Okay. It doesn't make literal sense that the van had drifted here from Canada. I mean, look at that. However, I think there was a lot of thought put into this decision. Thematically, it's absolutely in the right place at the right time. We've already broached the subject of revisiting Sin's past through the Panda King, but at this point, both he and Sly are too entrenched in doubt to step in and move the plot forwards. What we need is someone who's already accepted a different side of himself, and now refuses to look backwards any longer.
We just ran out of options.
She's right, Murray. It's hopeless. Get out of there. Save yourself.
I will not. I will never leave her behind again.
Words do tear at a father's heart. Would that I had such passion when they came from my little Jing King.
The brilliance of this turning point is how it's represented in the gameplay. Remember Murray's segments in the first game? He was the group burden, getting himself into scrapes where we had to protect him via blast turrets, needing constant guidance and direction to get out of danger. Look at him now.
Either help me or get out of my way. I'm bringing her home.
Same situation, completely different context. Murray knows exactly what he wants, and now we cover for him as a courtesy in recognition of that strength, an inspiring sight for someone looking for a light in the dark.
Well done, Hippo. You've lit the flames in my soul. I feel awake for the first time in years.
No, thank you, Panda King. You can ride in my van anytime. You got shotgun for like a month.
A great honor. I accept.
This doesn't excuse Panda King's past actions, and it's difficult to imagine how the series would allow that to be effectively resolved. Prior villains have often had sympathetic backstories, King included, but it's rare that we're allowed to see that result in any kind of redemption, often being met instead by Sly's withering put-downs. The solution here is to give the player an alternative perspective, something the game had already been presenting us with hints of throughout, and what makes it special is that it's one nobody else but us gets to see.
Hello, old friend. I am about to work alongside Sly Cooper, and I cannot carry you with me on the journey. You fool! This is your chance for revenge! He humiliated us, ruined us, made us weak. Humiliation was a crossroads. I have chosen to walk the path of humility. Humility that cost you your daughter!
This is the first point of view to be so completely isolated from the rest. In guiding the Panda King's fractured psyche to clarity, we are given empathy for the character on a deeply intimate level. The very real demons that plague him are now burdened upon us, and it's our duty to consider him differently, as a person in need of resolution.
Cooper is a teacher of humility. We have slain his parents, yet he manages to trust us. By studying him, we will become whole. You are failure. I am the strength that used to be the once glorious Panda King. You are strong, and I am humble. But only through cooperation will we become the father Jing King needs. The yin and the yang. If strength were all that mattered, Sao would be an ideal son-in-law.
The kicker is that Sly knows nothing about this, and that's an interesting thing to do to our lead.
Fear not, Cooper. I shall not kill you this day.
Ditto.
They don't suddenly try to force these two together as buddies. It's clear that they're completely incompatible, and it takes the opportunity to use that to the story's advantage.
Put him in the crypt and kaboom! No more hopping vampires.
Yes, this ordinance will suffice.
They're gonna be fangs everywhere! Right. I'll just head back to the safe house.
Yes, do that.
The narrative distance sort of pushes us back as an audience to look at the big picture and consider what they're trying to tell us, and the tools they're using to make that point. We see that these are two men steeped in the baggage of their long, revered histories, and the best thing to throw at them would be a villain who exemplifies both of their flaws, in this case the conniving General Sao. The choice of a rooster is a blatant metaphor for his crowing, proud nature, depicted as vain and pompous, an extreme take on both Sly and the Panda King's flaws. Sao sees his opponent's value only in their bloodline, something both characters have been guilty of in the past, and now uses it against them, in lieu of any personal qualities worth a damn.
You have a strong sense of, compositional regularity and, force perspectivism.
That arrogance actually plays a big part in how the chapter is structured. While at first he seems like any other villain, Sal throws off the operation quite early and forces us into action.
I programmed my ThiefNet computer to automatically analyze what the... General Sal! He's got my computer! Our whole plan is on that computer! How'd he find us? We're doomed!
Bentley, calm down. I need you sharp. Listen up, team. This Sao character is more clever than any of us thought. As of this moment, we have one goal. Steal back the ThiefNet computer.
The resulting confrontation directly addresses a clash of egos, as two thieves of different stripes fight above the ghosts of their past to prove who is most worthy. No, that really is what they're doing.
I've heard of these types of battlegrounds before. The energy from all the fighting that has gone on before strengthens the combatants.
Boss fights have generally been better tailored to fit the story beats at any time, taking on unconventional forms with different sections rather than most of Sly 2's free-for-all kerfuffles held at the end of the chapter. Sal's fight is no exception, with both phases offering Sly ample opportunity to get the most out of his own personal skills and to see the full extent of Sal's nastiness. It's funny, when the chapter starts, this is treated as a really weak joke.
During surveillance, I actually witnessed him kick a puppy twice!
It's like, okay, maybe that's an on-the-nose way to get the point across. There's got to be a better way to...
She doesn't want to marry you. She's a woman. She doesn't know up from down.
Yeah, that'll do it. The conflict presented throughout this chapter highlights the story's purpose. This is an examination not just of the characters, but of the concept of reputation as a whole, comparing the results of three bloodlines that happen to intersect at this moment, and it's why the Panda King is the perfect choice. He built a reputation by force, as a king no less, and saw it destroyed by the enemies that process created. It cost him the only person in his life who mattered, and to a young upstart from a long line of tyrants making all the same mistakes King made in his youth. By contrast, Sly is no longer sticking so strictly to his roots. The Cooper Gang has changed almost beyond recognition now it's accepted new people into its ranks, letting them have an equal voice in plotting a course for the future. The Panda King sees this in action and rejects his reputation to do the right thing and become a better man. And this is directly related to the decisions Sly will have to make before the story is done. That's a huge talking point, and unfortunately, it gets kinda buried. For all the compelling stuff we've discussed on how the game offers a unique experience while walking along the basics of the Sly formula, it's only fair to mention that this hasn't been met with monumental praise. With so many fresh ideas and characters and concepts being applied at a feverish pace, you'd be forgiven for feeling that it's all a bit, overwhelming. There's a history of platforming trilogies that hit this snag upon reaching a third title. An increase in demand from both fans and publishers put pressure on developers to produce something that looked bigger and better within tighter deadlines, usually by cramming in a bunch of mechanical gimmicks that diluted the core gameplay. The ones that stuck the landing tended to do so because they were dressed to fit the order of business. Spyro 3, for example, supports the inclusion of its new characters and vehicles in between reused assets by way of a new space to explore, the Forgotten Worlds. Crash 3 stands firm by its time travel plot, the use of assorted vehicles justified as getting around terrain in different states of chronological undress, if you catch my drift. This isn't always the case. Jak 3, by comparison, doesn't really have a strong focus beyond the first act, falling into a lot of one-shot gimmicks that begin to put a strain on the story's coherency. Or worse, there's Ratchet 3, which tries to hide its less impressive levels behind repetitive mission maps. It can go either way. Sly 3 had a deadline tight enough to bring on some noticeable losses. The lack of clue bottles, a staple since Sly 1, could leave you disappointed, giving little reason to explore the levels. In their place are the handful of extra modes and mechanics, which, in spite of bolstering teamwork, can feel like filler. If you only want to play as Sly, then you might feel intruded on by all these characters. Some you can take onto the field with minimal use, some only controlled as disguised minigames, but none able to be picked whenever you like in the overworld outside of the classic trio. Maybe you didn't care for the canal chases, the camera-based puzzles, the biplanes, or the boat rides. There's a lot of single gimmicks which build on your sneaky skill set, but are never repeated at any point. We've already seen that there's an unskippable tutorial section that feels rather redundant 3 games in, extending into further optional stages that seem to be taking up disk space. I believe this was done to reduce tutorials within the story, which is a good thought, but that first impression doesn't help. Some might say that these additions aren't wholly justified, maybe added to by the more out-there aspects of the story. We've had weird phenomena feature in the series before, and 2 was really good at domesticating these and making things seem, if you will, plausible. It's harder to shake off here, sure.
I summon you from rock to flesh. Aid the family Tao in this hour of need.
What the fuck is this?
You might turn your nose up at the giant dragon you fight above the mountains of China when escaping the 4th chapter, or maybe even the, why not, 50-foot tall Carmelita controlled by a ghost mask. Could be a deal breaker. The liberal application of the game's humour might not be to everyone's taste either. Just because the gang appears to be having fun doesn't mean that the player will reciprocate, especially if they enjoyed the subdued nature of the second game. The lack of satisfaction for those expecting more of the same is understandable, and it's something people who dislike Sly 3 may really feel once they reach the game's penultimate level.
Bloodbath Bay.
Sheep-brained, clam-tongued whale, or brainless, grog-abusing bag of vomit.
This place is openly a bit of a joke. It still fits into the quasi-real-world mythos Sly often pulls from, an old shanty town undoubtedly based on the Haitian island of Tortuga, famously occupied as a base for pirates in the 1600s, and it's impressively built, complete with a full-blown port of ships. As the level progresses though, things get a bit crazy. We find ourselves drifting out onto the Caribbean Sea, occupying the hold of an impressive galleon that is, no joke, fully functional, able to combat and then board enemy vessels to nab bags of gold. We sail the ocean, we explore a bunch of islands, we use maps to dig up buried treasure, we fight a kraken, we make friends with a kraken, row your boat, this is quite a lot. So yeah, potentially overwhelming. If I told you the game had an attempt at a full-blown pirate sim hiding under the cover, would you really have felt that was appropriate? It isn't helped by Dimitri's contribution as the final new member of the team. A single section of diving that, while a cool idea, isn't committed to fun or interesting goals, and feels like a bit of a wash. And maybe you hold the game and you go, this is getting away from what you came here for, the classic Sly Cooper action we'd come to love. And to that I'd say, congratulations. That's the point. Bloodbath Bay is a perfect example of Sly 3's commitment to the story, even as it stretches the concept to its extremes. As a sweeping gesture, yes, there's a lot of wacky changes, but they're all consistent with the voice of the series. Pirates are quite a broad concept, a subject that was dealt with less obviously in the original game and with a different tone, yet it feels appropriate. Sly has always been something of a suave, swashbuckling hero when needed, and now that he's flanked by an expanded crew of ne'er-do-wells, it's only fitting to play the pirate card. It would have been nice if the technology had been sophisticated enough to do it justice, to have the full crew operating the ship at once instead of 3 people above deck at any given time. Still, it does the job within its limits. As the third game in the series, and the chapter before it all ends, we're allowed the chance to do something big and crazy before we wrap up, and to have fun along the way. The varied mechanics are all justified to support this change in scope. You and I can talk about if this insult fight is potentially a fun nod to Monkey Island, but it's definitely taking an existing past mechanic to the next level, along with others, bookmarking some overall mechanical continuity from previous stages.
You're a parrot-loving, duck-billed cow pie.
Ha! You swear like a child!
Even the stuff unique to here is impressive in that it's not only hugely ambitious, but doesn't mess with the rest of the package. There's still a coherent narrative being told, and in unanticipated ways, with our villain Captain Lafouille not even introduced until halfway through the chapter, and still making an effective impression.
I'll tell you something, by thunder. That disc in the sky was just the beginning.
But, sir, 'tis gone. Them bridges is up and all's as clear as morning.
Sure, every man's entitled to their opinion. But I don't want to hear no more of them. Second Mate Jones.
Yes, sir.
You're now promoted to Captain of the Guards.
Thank you, sir.
There's been a lot done to assuage the sense that characters are being arbitrarily stapled onto the team. They each have a purpose in the story without taking too much time from each other. The Guru is a driving force behind Murray's change and is alluded to from the start, even bridging the divide between unlikely allies. Penelope has a clear introduction in her chapter and a huge surprise role that keeps her, even without us knowing at the time, engaged with the Cooper Gang's activities. Panda King builds on expectations of his appearance in a previous title and is made into a reflection of the story's thematic conflict. Dimitri has also been cleverly included. There was probably mutual appreciation for the impact he made in Sly 2, and it would have been so easy to drop him in only to make with the funny haha, but they create a reasonable bridge that allows us to accept his turn from selfish villain to hero, peppering enough of him throughout the game in different roles that slowly reveal his usefulness as an ally.
A favor?
This no small-time favor like, will you water my fish or feed my plant? No way, bro! This old-school mafia blood pack favor, like movies, big time.
He even comes with some history concerning the exploits of his grandfather and his desire to change moral course, a revelation that ties into our ongoing reassessment of the supporting characters and contributes to the game's overall reputational discussion. But don't worry, he's still a goof.
Got the gear, got the macho swimsuit, got more juice than you'll ever know. I'm a hit singer with a bullet!
Cool, Daddy-O. How about you take your pimp self down beneath the H2O and get nasty with the scuba? Yo, with bling.
Hey, man, you can try, but you'll never capture my essential style.
The codependent balancing act used to keep everyone important to the narrative in Sly 2 has been carefully extended to these newcomers, and that this is at the expense of Sly's screen time is, I feel, absolutely right. What can all of this drama that comes with these people mean for Sly and his legacy? It's kind of lost, you know? Our intimate moments have been spent with other members of the gang, Bentley given the lion's share of attention in this chapter as he and Penelope begin taking notice of each other.
Roger, Bentley. Let's light this candle.
Be still, my heart. She made an obscure NASA reference. Why do the girls always have to go for Sly? It's just not fair.
Although that could easily take an aggressive turn, they talk it out in a holistic fashion, and while throwing Sly under the bus to boot.
There's no way in!
I've dealt with guys like this before. They can't really trust their own men, so they always keep an escape route handy.
Sly's really taught you a lot.
Sly? We're a team. In case you haven't noticed, I'm the brains of the operation. He's just the field man.
Just the field man? Sounds like you're jealous.
Well, yeah, I wish I wasn't in this chair. I wish I could run on tight ropes and jump on flag poles and all that stuff, but I can't.
You can do other stuff. Sly can't rewire a satellite or write ASCII code.
Sly can't even spell ASCII.
Yeah, he's not the most technical guy.
The dialogue here is revealing, with Penelope getting a chance to develop, reconsidering her stance on her workmates, and to remind us that Bentley is an independent, thinking, feeling person, something we may not have responded to so strongly if we weren't able to play as him and experience that for ourselves.
Hey, let's get moving. We won't find the back entrance just standing around. Oh, sorry about that standing comment.
Give me a break, Penelope. It's just an expression.
The final mission against Lafouille does involve some trash talk between him and Sly, yet it feels like a formality of being the leader, as he very quickly leapfrogs onto a series of actions carried out by the rest of the gang.
Fish pig.
And even though it was Bentley who took the attention, he's not the one who walks us out of the chapter.
Nobody touches that turtle, but me.
Me pirate flower finally blooms, yet ye favour this cripple over me, the smartest man on the 7 seas?
Oh, I do like smart guys. And he beat you at your own game. You tell me who's more intelligent.
Be still my heart and quick me blade. 'Tis time for a duel!
The final fight is performed by Penelope, which, like Murray's fight with Octavio, puts forward an anticipated resolution. It's paying off the chapter's setups in the player's hands, controlling her in the moment where she realises these people are more to her than colleagues, a final act of redemption after her up and down stint as the Black Baron. She's loyal to the team, willing to lay down her life for the things she cares about. We see it now. It's nice, it's fun, it's moving. It's just not really about Sly, right? I mean, the game is moving beyond Sly. This is the point I was alluding to earlier. I understand the frustration of leaving behind a character and style of play we once enjoyed, but this is the nature of the story, and it's done in an incredibly clean manner in spite of itself. Sly 3, like many threequels, is doing a million different things, but every single one is really only saying one thing. We are moving beyond Sly Cooper, and indeed beyond the Cooper legacy itself. And frankly, so with the team behind it all. Once again, Sucker Punch's presentational skills are to be applauded, and while Sly 2 is an excellent main course, 3 is such a lovely cake.
What does that mean?
The style established in Sly 2's cutscenes is polished even further. Drawings no longer smack of being off-model, where the proportions or style feel different from image to image, like suddenly giving Sly 6 fingers. Backgrounds are still lineless, but have a smattering of soft detail, lending greater focus to the foreground. With deadlines getting tighter, Travis and Jordan Kotzebu shared the brunt of the work, while Dev Madan focused on the game's overall vision, and Rafael V. Colonzo was brought on to help assist with inking, painting, and animating the final scenes. Animation itself is more present and has advanced, we get a few moving parts, but it still holds all the telltale trappings of a comic book. The polish of the game is unique from the second in other subtle ways. The music works on the same theory as Sly 2, though Peter McConnell gets a chance to play with even broader genres. Sly's theme continues to hide within tracks, and other members of the gang receive their own leitmotifs throughout the score as they become involved, again lending them equal narrative power. There's many broad touches in the game's humour too. Even if the Sly series has never been devoid of references to other works, this one pays homage more noticeably in playful ways. It's a dangerous crutch to lean on, but it never gets too intrusive as it doesn't take focus away from the immediate action, a hard balance to capture. Sly 3 is packaged up differently from 2 overall, the episode list still having a DVD select menu, now dedicating a screen to each episode to include all the bonus features, such as concept art and a host of optional challenge modes for extra replay value. On top of being able to play as Carmelita, another fan request finally fulfilled was multiplayer mode, which features a couple of simple minigames that use the existing mechanics from the main story. One strange and rather intriguing special feature was the decision to have some levels use a 3D mode. Every copy was packaged with a pair of 3D glasses, based on Sly's mask, to make certain levels appear to pop out of the screen, often during missions in dark areas. I seem to remember this working. Sorta kinda. Maybe. No. The presentation generally feels like a box set, packed with extras that you can unlock, in the original copy, like the half-animated short Goodbye My Sweet, or the developer's commentary on their original builds for the first game, and of course, the greatest video ever made.
Juice!
Who's got the juice?
It feels, I guess, complete. Compared to the last two games, the stuff added here seems celebratory, as if charting the anniversary of the series and key moments that brought us to where we are now. A little bit of everything. It was obvious that Sucker Punch was having a great time putting this together, that everyone was jazzed about cutting loose after the meticulous heaviness of 2, instead producing something more joyous. They've never stopped talking about how fun Sly was to work on and how much they'd love to keep exploring that series.
You know, when you're finishing a series, a lot of times you have this kind of sense of, I want to get it done so we can get to something new, but I don't really think that we had that in that case. I think we really loved that IP so much that it was a little maybe bittersweet for us. It wasn't, oh, the urgency to get something new. It was like, oh, I'm going to miss this.
That said, there were realities that made this untenable. The trauma introduced at the end of Sly 2 was resolved, and in many ways the developers were experiencing the same sense of resolution as they discussed their future. Brian Fleming talked in retrospect about the decision that would be best for the company. There was certainly the possibility of becoming the Sly Cooper development studio indefinitely, something they loved being and didn't want to rule out. They were also becoming aware of how the business was changing. They needed to take steps that would keep the company sustainable and to help push themselves into new territories.
The other thing that they said in that same time is, we are done. They were very clear in that recording session. We are done with the Sly Cooper franchise. And they very kindly, many times, I think he said it when we had him on the show, like, it is my hope that someone takes that franchise and runs with it.
While it's fun to live and stay with your family, you know, it's useful to move and it's useful to go somewhere new and have new experiences. And I think that was something that we were pretty clear on, that we knew we were going to do Sly 3 and then we were going to go do new IP.
Whatever happened, for them this was a finale of some kind. It's not often you get a chance to anticipate an ending. In fact, they'd done that extremely well on the previous two games, leaving the door ajar for potential sequels while making sure they had satisfying endings in case another chance never came. The same is true here, and it seems to have been on the cards for some time. I think one piece of evidence shows their intentions transparently. In the American packaging, the manual covers of each game are based on the Thievius Raccoonus, but with each progressive title, they appear more aged and tattered. I mentioned that the story is moving us beyond Sly Cooper, and it seemed to mirror the developer's attitude. Knowing this may be the last Sly game they make, even if they changed their mind in the future, they wanted to write something that they could at least say ended on their terms, leaving a satisfying legacy for people to enjoy. With this game, they were saying goodbye. We've been building to that farewell since this began, and it all loops back around to that fateful intro.
All these memories, they just bring me back to the same place. Getting crushed to death in the fist of some genetics experiment gone wrong. Not the way I thought I'd go out.
The narration here, much like at the start of the second game, is shockingly candid.
Shame, really. Now that we've got this big gang, more like a pack of misfits. Either way, we've become a team. We had some real potential there. Could have pulled off some big jobs. I just wish I'd seen what was in there. A stockpile of my family's accomplishments. Would I have measured up? What would I contribute? Would my father have been proud of me or ashamed? Funny, but here I am at the end, and suddenly all I can think about is what a coward I've been towards Carmelita. I never took the next step. Looking at Bentley and Penelope, it's clear what life is about. If Carmelita was here, I'd tell her straight out how I feel, and quit playing around. Put our professional differences aside and see if we can make it work. But that'll never happen now.
Broken in spirit, mind, and soon body, the Cooper legacy is about to come to a devastating conclusion.
Lieutenant Gronk, get your squad together. We're about to see some action.
Yes, ma'am. Lock and load, you apes. We're going in.
Hold on, Ringtail.
Being given the chance to play as Carmelita again to save Sly is the right decision. Wanting to see him free makes this a cathartic experience as the most OP playable character takes charge, setting some dramatic irony we'll be coming back to later. Inspector Fox finds that she's out of her depth on this one though. We have to establish that what's happening right now is beyond the law, and this insane conversation nicely brings us back to what we've been up against.
You harpy witch! Why are the police invading my home?
I'm here to see that justice is done.
Justice? I'm the victim here, defending what's mine from thieves!
Looked to me like you were attempting to murder that man.
That man, please, you know this is Sly Cooper. You're as transparent as you are narrow-minded.
Cooper is a criminal. I'm here to bring him and all lawbreakers to justice.
I'm no lawbreaker. It was all self-defense.
First things first. Put Cooper down and we'll talk terms.
Sorry, Madam Cop, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. Although I can throw you a long, long way. Go smash that woman, crush her bones to paste, and toss her in the sea where no one will ever find her.
Clearly more going on than meets the eye.
Now to find that cane. I can't believe this idiot just brought it to me. Poor fool. He looks just like his father, and he's just as dead.
Cane Island isn't an explorable setting, rather a backdrop for a sequence of tightly controlled events as we strategize our way to putting Sly back in control. We're stepping backwards through each of the new recruits' abilities, sans the Panda King, so we can sign off on their involvement with us mechanically, getting a couple of final interactions to show that their chemistry has definitely hit a ceiling.
Your plan is work to perfection.
My plan to get you alone in a swimsuit?
Come clean, my lovely, and play your cards straight. These are dangerous waters, and I'm a big, strong, macho man.
Okay, first, get over yourself. Second, I mean it, get over yourself.
Salty language from such sweet lips. I'll die, baby. I die for the love.
At each step, things get that bit zanier. The villain keeps returning with more and more bizarre forces bent on stopping us, not to mention building a painfully clear picture of the level of crazy we're up against. Things escalate to unmanageable proportions pretty quickly. That is a flying whale. We gotta fight it. We find a way. It's fine. Once Sly is finally back in the saddle, we're allowed to get anywhere close enough to figure out exactly what this has all been about. It's heavy stuff.
Headstrong, just like your father.
You don't know anything about me or my father.
Really? Who let you in on the secret of this place, eh? Was it my old pal Mcsweeny, perhaps?
Mcsweeny works for you? This was all a setup to get the cane.
No, my boy. Once upon a time, he and I worked together for your dear old dad.
Oh, we are in though. Clockwork was an excellent arch-nemesis to the Cooper Gang, but I think Dr. M represents a much deeper thematic problem Sly faces, something that results in the creation of people like Clockwork. M appears to derive his name from the titular character of The Island of Dr. Moreau, a book about an insane scientist who sets up shop on a tropical island, vivisecting humans and animals to create new life. M does the same here with his colourful gang of hybrid monsters of various kinds patrolling the island base. The question is, what drives a man to this depth of wretchedness? What makes someone this twisted to the point where they feel so rejected by reality? The answer is pretty simple. Dr. M is himself a monster of the Cooper Gang's own making.
My father wouldn't have run with a guy who tried to steal from the Cooper vault, let alone attempt to kill his son.
Time does strange things to people. Just look at the real leader of your gang, Bentley.
Whatever, we're friends, equal.
Then why is it called the Cooper Gang, you self-centered egomaniac?
That's enough. Time to meet the past.
It wasn't an accident that the Cooper ancestry was given such a big introduction. Since Sly 1, we've been hyping up the exploits of these great thieves, and now we're finally going to see the results of their work and become part of that great heritage by hiring a team of experts, who we assume will accept us as their leader. In the end, the job took a back seat to the experts' individual concerns and the bonds we created with them. Full attention was paid to helping them achieve their goals, watching them develop into fulfilled, happy people, who forced us out of our habits and got us to witness places and events we'd never dreamed of seeing, some so strange nobody would believe us even if we told them. We wanted them as assets, but we gained them as friends. This should be celebrated, but we can't. We have to shrug it all off and risk everything for a reward we can't share, for a bunch of dead guys we'll never meet. Maybe that's why this all seems a little... hollow.
Bentley, you there?
Yeah, pal?
I'm about to head inside the vault, and I want you and Murray to come with me. We're a team, a family. We should do this together.
Okay, be right up.
The fuse is lit. Buckle up, Bentley. We're about to fly. Yahoo!
We're never doing that again.
And that's what's special about the Cooper Vault. If I may tangent briefly, there was an operetta, yes, we're doing this, written by Gilbert and Sullivan, which mocked the idea of archetypes. Ruddigore. I'm abbreviating, but the naive young hero, by convoluted means, discovers he is related to a long line of villains, and must therefore give up his innocent life to take on their legacy. It leads to a spooky scene where, in the middle of the night in his inherited Gothic castle, the portraits of his long-dead ancestors come to life and taunt him, telling him he must accept his title and carry on their reputation. Nathan Bruce did theatre, I'm just saying. This is not treated as a privilege, but a terrible burden. And I can't help but draw parallels to the Cooper Vault, echoed in gameplay rather than song, for the best, After the vibrancy of the growing gang's exploits, the Cooper Vault proves in contrast to be a lonely, imposing, grim treasure to behold. Each ancestor may be dead, yet their silence, their glaring portraits, and the sheer magnitude of the wealth they've accumulated are more oppressive than anything they could actually say to us. It's not a welcoming reward, it's an obstacle course, each segment built by a different member of the family, daring you to prove your worth. The judgment feels antagonistic, the Coopers holding themselves in high regard and expecting you to do the same, oblivious to their legacy literally crumbling around them. Even the music is incredibly melancholy rather than triumphant. It has this sense of grandeur, but the melody often falters. Sly's leitmotif representing both sides of the argument, eventually pressed beneath its own heady weight. We'll never know the truth, but it appears no good has come from this treasure. It's impressive for sure, it speaks for the Cooper's success, and conversely, on why someone like Dr. M felt patronised over the years. A treasure he had a hand in earning but was not allowed to see, twisting him into an unrecognisable creature of jealousy. He is thematically apt to be Sly's final enemy, a product of the Cooper gang's unchecked ego. And on some level, he has a point. It's easy to be in awe of this fantastic achievement, and we are, but for whose benefit is it hidden away from the world? A legacy that has created such bitterness amongst others, trapping Sly in a life that only offered temporary freedom, forcing him and his friends to be cornered wherever they went, and with no end to the cycle in sight. Is this what it was all for? Was it worth it? There's a ray of hope to be found at the end of the tunnel as a contribution from the most recently deceased Cooper.
This must be my father's work. How am I supposed to get through this thing? He made this challenge for a move I've never learned. There's nothing like this in the Phoebus Raccoonus. Come on, Dad. Help me out here. Nice work, Dad.
I think we've about earned this, don't you? This trail of thought continues as the action switches back to a few moments before, in a blunt conversation between Bentley and Murray.
This is going to be the payday of all time. Think of all the loot piled up back there.
Do you ever feel like you're playing second fiddle to Sly? Like he treats us as sidekicks?
No way! Sly's cool! We're all in this together!
Sure, we're all here, but are we equal? Who went into the vault? Sly, by himself.
Watch out!
The steps to this argument haven't been hard to climb. We've seen throughout the game how much Bentley's self-image has developed and made him question Sly's authority long before knowing Dr. M's past. Murray, having taken the path to enlightenment and having proven his value over the course of the game, is the first to reject the idea completely.
Think of it this way, Bentley. If it were you in that vault and Sly and I were out here, what would he do?
stop these thugs, and protect his friend.
Right, and that's what I'm gonna do. Keep your head down, stay clear. I'm gonna smash a lot of skulls, and I don't want yours to be one of them. Come and get it, maggots. I've got a knuckle sandwich for all of you!
He's come so far. There's a chance for the argument to be tested against Dr. M himself, confrontational after rattling Sly's cage.
I gather you were the technical specialist working with Sly's father?
You knew Sly's dad?
Quiet, cavemen, the adults are talking. That's right, Bentley. I know the pain you suffer working under your inferior.
It's no secret, I'm smarter than the other guys. But there's more to it than that.
Like what?
Like brotherhood.
Brotherhood? That's just what he wants you to think. It's a tool to keep you in line.
Now that's the thing that keeps us happy and alive. It's why I'm going to stop you.
And me too.
Fine, Koopa Gang. I tried.
Caveman attack!
Now here's an interesting response. Bentley accepts that, while he's not the hero of the story, and certainly not happy to settle for second place, there is no logical reason to reject what has been a net positive. Being a member of the Cooper Gang took things away, but it also gave him a happy, amazing life worth living. Nothing an orphan with an uncertain future can guarantee. He's made peace with that argument. And what's really fascinating is that Sly, has not. He doesn't have a good answer, even if his friend is willing to make room for the possibility that he does. This is really what it's all been about. Seeing the world through different eyes, we've watched so many people grow and change, willing to sacrifice things that seemed important to them in order to help others. Sly has facilitated this, but has yet to properly take part, and is visibly worried at being left behind. What is he without the Cooper name? What is he without his friends? We've seen they're going to be okay, and they've opened the door for him to discover if the same will be true for him.
That hall's for Coopers only!
Maybe it's time for men such as you and I to change all that.
He's getting away! What do we do?
I'll think of something. Just give me time.
You know something, Bentley?
What?
You think awesome.
Thanks, pal.
This is just overwhelming. Amazing. How'd Thaddeus make a flying machine in the 1800s? Bet this thing still works.
Oh, I'm sure it's operational.
Dr. M, glad you could see all this. I know you've been looking forward to it.
Looking forward to all this, and your death.
Come on, aren't we supposed to banter a little?
I only talk with my equals, and Bentley said no.
The final confrontation with Dr. M doesn't offer much hope. Cut off from the world at the inner sanctum, sitting on a tiny arena, it's incredibly claustrophobic, adding to the great pressure the story applies, literally bringing us to the core of the matter at hand. The predictability of the fight itself seems representative of how bleak things are. There's no way around the fact that neither one of them are going to come to terms on this. There's no special answer to get us through. Nothing about the music or the layout or anything says we're going to just walk away, but at least we see that Sly recognizes part of the blame.
I don't know what went down between you and my father, but I'm telling you, it's not the same with me and Bentley.
You might be right. He risked his life to defend you.
I do the same for him.
Funny, your father was never such a good friend.
We're all individuals. I might be part of all this, a member of the Cooper line, but in the end, I'm just me. Not Henriette, Thaddeus, Slight and Common, Ryoichi, or my father. Just Sly.
Please, keep your touchy-feely rhetoric to yourself. I can't stomach it. You Coopers are a bunch of dirty, attention-grubbing thieves. All of you, thieves!
That'll do, Fox.
Hold it right there! Both of you thieves are going to jail.
Nice to see you, gorgeous.
You too.
Oh, a love interest. I might be beaten, but I'll make you suffer.
Not her!
In these rapid, final moments, as Sly makes his last move, it's worth remembering what has come before. At the end of every tale, one person stood by and protected a legacy she was poised to end at all costs, ironically, and at her own expense. She assisted him, dealt the final blow to a hated enemy, and here takes control of an unwinnable argument, ending it once again at her own hand.
No one hurt my criminal.
It's a brash bit of catharsis that bookends how this chapter started, but is only possible thanks to Sly taking the steps so many of his friends had already taken. Perhaps now we test the futility of his profession, that our actions maybe deserve to have some consequence, that being a thief is fun, but doesn't necessarily excuse responsibility. I'll get straight to it. Carmelita has always been right, is what I'm saying. So why fight it?
What happened?
Sly?
Where are we? What is this place?
Sly, can you remember anything?
No. Who are you? You look familiar.
I'm Inspector Carmelita Montoya Fox.
And who am I?
You're my partner, Constable Cooper.
Well, partner, we'd better get out of here. The ceiling's gonna go. Haven't got much time.
Let's go.
Sly! You in here? Sly?
It's funny how things turn out. In the early days, the Cooper Gang sought a decisive victory. These poor underdogs, they saw themselves as deserving of happiness, and they were going to stick it to those who took that from them. They succeeded. Later on, things got complicated. They were forced out of their comfort zones, and everything they feared might happen came true. There was a victory at a great cost. In both cases, we saw our heroes react with emotion, either gaining or losing something they truly cared about. At Sly 3's end, a decisive victory does not take place. We simply observe.
We watched as Dr. M just stood there, unwilling to leave as the walls caved in on the vault. He'd spent his life lusting over the Cooper fortune, and he wasn't going to give it up, no matter what the cost.
There are no tears as Benchley and Murray watch the Cooper legacy swallow itself whole in a final act of selfishness.
Murray managed to get us out just in time to witness the final fate of the Cooper legacy. It was a bittersweet moment. The end of the road always is.
Those strong emotions of the past are tempered by perspective. Both found themselves outside of the Cooper Vault, and as they reflect on their decisions, they realise it was a prize that was never theirs to want.
We'd worked for a long time to get Sly into that great vault, and now its secrets were hidden again. This time for good. I could only hope that he'd found what he was looking for in there.
It would be unfair to say the friendship has soured, as it's revealed that Sly did leave behind one memento they could make use of.
Only this time, it was worth millions.
In one selfless move, the landscape for these people changes yet again. This time, they're equipped to tackle it. Waiting for the next step had always been difficult when working as a team, but it comes to them easier now, each falling into something that best reflects their individual needs. Rounding the final base, each person discovers closure. Things are truly over, but as we soon realise, only for a single chapter in their lives.
Let me tell ya, I'm in love! She and I have set out on a journey that I never would have dreamed up while running with Sly and Murray, although I hope our paths will cross again soon. So while this might be the end of our adventures together, it could be the start of something even bigger. Time will tell. Literally. 'Cause I'm building a time machine to find out.
Things must end. It is the only way to make room for beginnings. What I want to impress is that Sly 3's ending does not invalidate what came before, or the possibility of what could follow. The power it holds is in how it preserves the trilogy as a whole. Our 3 games feature 3 distinct stories with different methods and purposes, a fact I have tried to reflect in even the way each video has been presented. But together, in Sucker Punch's final trick, they actually form one full story. One about reputation, the struggle to accept its cool, to maintain it, and to accept when it needs to change. A beginning, a middle, and an end. Sly 1 establishes his origin and the foundations of his world. When we discussed it in the past, we mostly talked about the theory behind the story setup, the tone, the voice, the look, everything that gives us an idea of who this character is and what he's all about. This is his reputation. The theme was a paintbrush that coloured these ideas, that made them all appear to fit together. Sly 2 was about pushing those ideas further. We explored how everything was developed, asking obvious questions of how the world would respond. We had to discuss the generalities of these huge advances, and the arc of the story used to accommodate them. Sly's friends were given a chance to join us on the journey, and cast lights on our leading man that put his authority into question. The results spoke volumes. We achieved great empathy. Sly 3 is much more difficult to discuss because it's not as easy to capture in wide angles. It's a collection of memories that, when strung together, reveal a message about the all-consuming nature of reputation, and the inevitability of the changes we must make to move forward with our lives, of villains boasting of their conquests, who pay for their arrogance, of people who have to throw away alter egos they've held for too long to change the lives of others for the greater good, of a gang whose name doesn't reflect who they are anymore as individuals, of one man whose luck has run out. Sly Cooper resisted change. The Cooper name was something he was proud of, a thing he held onto tightly after everything else was taken away. It allowed him to live a life unlike anyone else, and he used the name as a force for good. But he was a thief. A cocky, arrogant, selfish thief. It was the nature of his job, and that limited his options and made him, though he may not have considered it, wholly responsible for the well-being of two inexperienced people who would do anything for him. In some ways, he was also responsible for Carmelita, someone who now had to spend all her time cleaning up his messes. This was never going to end well. In fact, it didn't. Things went very badly. But Sly 3 wasn't ready to call it quits. It wanted to give things another chance. To find a third way. When the Cooper Gang opened itself up to change, it began something that couldn't be stopped. New opportunities were thrown at us from every angle, connected by the principles of what had come before, now refracted through a handful of alternate perspectives, each, through the way the game was created, amplified with equal importance. They opened our eyes to the possibilities on offer, that life doesn't stop because something doesn't work. The gang's past couldn't be fixed, but as with everything we witnessed, it could be resolved. And that's the game's biggest statement in its decision to end. That nothing is impossible to resolve. The Cooper Gang had to end, so that new life could begin. They were shown it was going to be okay, but they had to let go. And in many ways, the audience was being told the same. Sly 2 was a special game, so was Sly 1, but how many more like that until it outstays its welcome? How long until the series feels less special because those individual stories have become footnotes in a long series of repeated successes? We experienced the best of what they had to offer while they could, while all the right people and resources were at their disposal to make it work. The rare mix of talent that made Sucker Punch and the Sly games what they were are no longer together, all having taken new steps in their lives to try and fulfill their own dreams, or exploring vast new grounds of potential that could create experiences we'd never have predicted from them. It's a perfect storm I could never recreate, and I don't want to. I don't think it's worth trying. Sly 3 shows us characters who are done retreading their pasts. Maybe we should be too. And that is where we leave Sly Cooper, having flipped the script to benefit the people he loved, a lesson his family may have lost sight of in their quest for immortality as the world's greatest thieves. They're dead. We've got to put them behind us and remember who it was who helped us here and now. It's time to step into a brave new world and build on these positive experiences. To remember that we are not defined by our reputation, that we are whoever we want to be. This man is not the world's greatest thief, the leader of a gang, the last of a dying legacy. He is not trapped. He is Sly Cooper, and he stole himself one last treasure. A happy ending.
That sneaky devil.
It's kind of amazing that the Sly Trilogy exists. Games with stories of great quality are out there, but rarely does the 3D platformer fall into this discussion. Not that I blame anyone for that. Be it the breezy mechanics or the heavily caricatured styles, it's a playground where one can explore a billion different options to express themselves. Even in the attempts to produce a brand that will sell, the form it takes on becomes art for art's sake, and Sly shares a lot of that, no doubt about it. What I see, however, the effort evident in what I discovered through research, in my replaying the games, just in those first moments where I realised as a teenager more was going on here, is impossible to keep a secret. What other platformer goes this far, is disciplined enough to want to tell such a well-rounded story? I've played nothing that sounds or acts like Sly. Nothing where you feel the developers love the craft as much as the medium. Luckily, the Sly games aren't going away. They are the definition of lightning caught in a bottle. The random chance that all these things could come together and work so seamlessly. That I could care about a thieving raccoon, it's kinda weird, you know? But here we are. at the end of a stupidly long video. Sly Cooper's story is one we can learn so much from, as creators and, sure, as people too. Maybe we won't play something like it again, or get to visit this world and its characters in the future. I don't mind. It ended strong. It's changed the way I look at telling stories, and especially how stories are handled within games. I'm grateful I got to experience their journey when I did. To know the Cooper Gang through some expert storytelling. To live with them, to laugh with them, to do what only a video game can let me do. To run with them. Alright, let's get to it. I want to thank the huge amount of people who made this possible, starting with the many friends who helped me look over and adjust the script. My buddy Andy put in that equality wheel you saw earlier, and it was the great Cloud Cuckoo Country who once again proofread and analysed the original draft. Guy has a YouTube channel of his own that I highly recommend you check out. Next up are the few people who actually worked on the games I was able to get some information from. I managed to get direct answers from Dev Madan and Jordan Kotzebu, and they've gone on to start their own endeavours that you guys can check out in the description below. Also a shout out to all the material that I got from Kevin Miller's Gamerland podcast, again available below. The Sly Cooper Wiki Discord team again proved to be a treasure trove of info that I wouldn't have been able to use otherwise, and are a bunch of swell dudes. If you have any interest in Sly, I guarantee you'll find something worth seeing here in their archives. I'd also like to include the archival beta and alpha footage I borrowed from YouTube users Goo and Jack Vancouver. Several wonderful voice actors stepped in once again and did a great job bringing those comic excerpts to life. All their details are listed here and in the description. It would mean a lot to me if you check them out and give them some support. Except that guy who played Bentley, I mean, what an asshole. The piano cover of Run With Us you heard at the beginning of the video was done by Jake, who also provided the last track before we wrapped up. If you liked those and want to hear more, you can jump right over to his channel at the link provided. And last but not least, major thanks to you guys, all my subscribers and my more involved fans. My Patreon followers have been incredibly patient as the production dragged on, and I am extremely grateful for their continued support. I know this has taken way longer than it should have, but I really hope that I've made something that does you and this series justice. It's been a real ride, and you guys have made the current form it takes possible. So thank you. That's it from me for now. Feel free to check out my other stuff or support me via the usual methods, and I hope to see you all again in another video real soon. Nope. Don't do it. Go.